is weird, odd, strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea, then the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Emily Ferrier, here to bring you my favorite weird news stories of the past few days. Starting us off this week, in Dory, forget the teachers union, now Seattle has a drug users union. Yeah, this is the latest group to unionize. Long overdue, you know. So what happened in this university district was a flyer was surfacing around for a drug users union. The group celebrates drug use. In fact, they formed a subculture all about drug use. The flyer says, Urban Survivors Union, proud to be a drug user, Seattle's drug user union. So, the union, this is all the flyer, by the way. Union that is, first and foremost, for and by drug users. First mission is to unite as drug users, because we are the only ones who understand the oppression we face. Join our family, and together we can change the laws to better protect our community. And they talk about how they meet the first Thursday of every month at the Needle Exchange. So the best, they talk about they look through the lens of what's best for heroin addicts. Big question is, what other laws do drug users need changed? Marijuana is legal in this state. King County allows personal possession amounts of hard drugs. We all know that drug crimes are rarely being prosecuted by our country prosecutor. That, along with cities depolicing, led to the downtown Seattle shooting because of all of the open drug use, drug dealing, and gangs that control drug dealing, and the violence that comes with gangs. So, the Drug Users Union already has the mayor, Seattle City Council, Seattle City Attorney, and country prosecutor working towards policies that it favors. Their leadership wants as many drug users as possible. There was a study this week stating that the county needs up to $1 billion extra each year to fight homelessness. It benefits government financially to have all that despair and broken lives that come with drug use. The more broken lives there are, the government has to step in and fix them by raising taxes. At least they want to fix lives, but it's really just about expanding the government and collecting more of your money. You work and save to get a place to live, but government wants you to also provide affordable housing, drug vagrants who've come flocking to your area. So, how do we feel about this? I personally am very against drug use. I don't think that it improves people's lives. I just don't. I think it's a lot of escapism. And this is, but you know what? My own opinions about this aside, is this a good idea to unionize drug users? It's not a career, so I don't really see how they're able to form a union. Maybe I'm wrong here, maybe I don't know any other unions that aren't jobs. You know? Like all workers unions are workers unions, right? So like drug users, drug dealers would be a union, right? Drug dealers, because that's a profession, I suppose. Not a legal profession, but it's a profession. I was just fascinated by this story. I thought it would be an interesting one to talk about. Do we think that the government benefits from drug users having trouble? I don't. I don't think that it does. I think that probably the government is doing its best to help people get off of drug. I don't think that drug use is something. I mean, it's not something that benefits the economy in a way. Unless drugs are legalized, it doesn't actually benefit the economy. So I don't get what the argument is here, I think is my problem. I'm not really seeing how this has become unionized, how this has become a thing at all. I don't even really see how this is a topic of discussion, but here we are discussing it. So there's that. I just read this headline and I thought I needed to talk about it. I needed to get to the bottom of it, to see what this is all about. And reading it, I already feel like it's a stronger union than the actors union, comedians union, that honestly seems to benefit no one. So a lot of times union, like with the creative world, union work actually just keeps you out of opportunities and really kind of hurts you in a way. So yeah, up to you guys. What do you think? Should drug users be unionized? Does that help anyone? Does it help you? I don't know. I don't really have much to say about this. So yeah, this is up to you. So that's it for the drug union talks, but we're not done with drugs, because after the break, we are going to talk about a very interesting case of a man that was arrested on a marijuana charge. See, drug related. But he responded to it in his court session in a very interesting way that either was very stupid or maybe a political statement. So we're going to talk about that man from Boston when we return from the break after these messages.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Weird News Pod. Before we were talking about unionizing drug users, something I'm still rattling my brain about. And now we're talking about a man who was arrested for smoking marijuana, and while he was in court for his marijuana charge, Spencer Boston got a message, and nothing was going to stop him from delivering it. Not even jail time. So Boston, 20 years old, was in court on Monday in Wilson County, Tennessee, facing a simple marijuana possession charge, according to Wilson County Sheriff's Department. Lieutenant Scott Moore. But as he stood to face Judge Hayward Berry, he began expressing his views on why weed should be legalized. To amplify his point, reached into his jacket, slipped out a single marijuana cigarette, then pulled out a box of matches, very old-fashioned, pulling out a box of matches, and, yes, he lit it up. Boston got several quick inhales before security personnel realized what was happening. I mean, why did it take them so long to realize what was happening? Did they take a hit of it? It is a memory loss drug. It helps with delayed reaction. It creates delayed reaction. I'm just saying. It sounds like they might have had a little bit of fun before. Anyway, so they detained Boston and escorted him out of the courtroom, Moore said. Although this wasn't the end of Boston, Boston wasn't done. Before being let out, he turned to the gallery and declared, "The people deserve better." The courtroom burst out laughing, Moore told CNN. Boston's message came with a cost. The Wilson County Sheriff's Office said that Boston was charged with disorderly conduct and simple possession of marijuana. Berry also held him in contempt of court for his actions. So what would have been a very simple charge turned into something a little bit more intense, but still not so bad. Boston is currently serving 10 days in jail for contempt, and afterward he is eligible to post a $3,000 bond, Moore said. His next court appearance is scheduled for April 14th. I personally think scheduling his next appearance for April 14th was a huge misstep. Obviously, it should have been the 20th of April. 420. What do we think about this act of rebellion from Boston? Do we think it was a great call, a great little stance for the legalization of marijuana? Or do we think that it was a severe lapse in judgment that should have been avoided and would have been a very easy drug charge otherwise? Up to you. When we return, we're going to talk about coronavirus. Coronavirus. Not exactly corona. We're going to talk about a little bit of a miscommunication with the coronavirus and some people misunderstanding what exactly it is. And actually, this one also relates to drugs a little bit. The drug of alcohol. I think that you can probably guess where this is going. So a little bit about confusion and kind of stupidity when we return.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
All right, welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about a rebellious act in court against a man named Boston's marijuana charge. And now we are talking about coronavirus. So the coronavirus, obviously, has nothing to do with Corona beer, but some people seem to think it does. Yeah. As a new coronavirus outbreak continues to spread, some people seem to think the deadly outbreak is somehow related to Corona beer. It's not, by the way. If you're listening to this, it's absolutely not related to Corona beer. The alcoholic beverage from Mexico showed a surge in Google searches this past week, along with the term Corona beer virus and beer virus. In the United States, Google Trends calculated that 57% of the people that searched one of those terms for beer virus, the remaining 43% Corona beer virus. States like Hawaii, New Mexico, and Kansas are searching beer virus more, whereas states like South Carolina, Colorado, and Arizona Corona beer virus more. Google Trends tweeted Tuesday that coronavirus symptoms had spiked over 1,050% this week. Search engine also included top questions on coronavirus in the past 24 hours, which included, what is coronavirus? Is coronavirus deadly? Google and Constellation Brands did not immediately respond to USA Today's request for comment on the recent surge in these searches. Chinese authorities have confirmed at least 5,500 cases of the coronavirus and 130 people dead from the outbreak. The epicenter of the outbreak is Wuhan, a city of 11 million people, but during their Tuesday news conference, officials from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention in the U.S. Department of Health and Services said that there were 60 cases in 13 other countries outside of China, including 5 in the U.S., a very low number and not an imminent threat. Coronavirus is largely a family of viruses that cause illnesses ranging from the common cold to more severe diseases, so it's not to be taken lightly. But I will say that you cannot get it from the beer Corona. I can't emphasize it enough. So keep going on Coronas. In other coronavirus news, Contagion hits top 10 on iTunes movie chart amidst the coronavirus outbreak. This sci-fi thriller about a China-born virus that goes global opened in cinemas nearly a decade ago. Gwyneth Paltrow is in it. Returns home from Minnesota from a business trip in Hong Kong. She exhibits these cold-like symptoms, dismisses it as jet lag. In 24 hours, she's dead. So is her young son. Her husband, played by Matt Damon, somehow immune to it, survives. As Matt Damon, I assume, is immune to most things. And thus begins Contagion. It's an hour and 46 minutes, and it tracks what happens to this deadly China-born virus going global, leading to mass chaos. Sound familiar? Anyway, so it's spiked again in popularity due to coronavirus. I'm sure Warner Brothers is thrilled by this. And it's not the only one, actually. Wolfgang Petersen's similarly themed Outbreak has also broken into the top 100. I don't think that these things are going to teach you anything. Remember that they are just movies. So, just remember that. When we return from the break, chilling new research about your cat and your corpse when we return.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about coronavirus and some common misconceptions with it. I just want to remind everybody that while coronavirus is not something to laugh about, it doesn't come from beer. Okay. So now we're going to do a very interesting flip. We're talking about new research that has discovered that your lovingly playful cat is in fact waiting for you to drop dead so that it can eat your flesh. Yeah, that's right. Scientists in the U.S. made this shocking discovery after finding 2 cats broke into their center and 8 bodies donated for forensic research. In a recent paper, researchers in Colorado's University for Forensic Investigation Research Station described how 2 different human corpses were eaten by 2 different cats. Researchers said that both animals had a taste for arm tissue. Specifically, I don't know about you, but my cat goes straight for the arms. So that's concerning. The bodies were left decomposing on land within the facility's 2 acres for students and scientists to document what happens in the decaying human flesh. Our study was aimed at helping police, coroners, and medical examiners determine what is natural that happens to the body and what's not natural in cases of death. The station is surrounded by 10-foot high, so obviously not 100-foot high, that would be ridiculous, wire-top fences that extend 2 feet underground to keep large animals and most burrowing ones out. Melissa Connor, a forensic anthropology professor and the director of the station, told the Washington Post that cats, skunks, and snakes would slip in through the gaps and under the front gate. Then, in late 2017, CCTV captured these feral cats eating the bodies that had been left out, eating all the way to the bone. Center's paper, which was published in the Journal of Forensic Sciences, highlighted one of the findings that confirms this popular knowledge. Cats are picky eaters. Despite having more than 40 bodies to choose from, each one returned to the corpse it had selected again and again, and returned nightly for 35 days, and at least they're consistent. 35 days in a row. Melissa and her co-author said that their findings didn't change how they felt about cats. If you were hungry, wouldn't you eat them? To be fair, these are feral cats. You know, these are cats that are not being consistently fed by humans. And as we all know, cats only really like you because you're feeding them. I think that's pretty obvious. I think that's true of most animals. I don't think that's even just cats, you know? Do we think this is horrific? Do we think that this is something that Stephen King should be writing about? Or do we think that this is just sort of like a circle of life thing, you know? I mean, they're dead bodies. You know, it's not like they're devouring live flesh. They're not going in and attacking people. You know, I really do, because like, you notice when a cat is like kind of like biting you or whatever, like maybe you're play fighting, and if they bite too hard, they feel badly. Like you can see on there. They're also not domesticated. Like they're feral cats. They're not domesticated cats. This isn't like somebody's pet went in and ate a body of like somebody who like died in their apartment. And I haven't been able to find evidence that suggests that. These are cats that have not been domesticated, that are just, you know, chilling in the world, and like had a little snack, you know? I don't think that there's too much wrong with that. Personally, you know, it's okay. That's okay by me. It's not quite as scary as the idea of like a cat literally waiting for you to die so it can eat you. I don't think that that's the case. Although I'm sure that the cats would prefer some nice meat over, kibble. Because who wouldn't? Anyway, that's probably enough for flesh-eating cats. When we come back, if anybody is a fan of the show Community, I found this story of a judge illegally practicing law. So not only, Community starts because Jeff Winger, a lawyer, faked his law degree and had to go back to community college to recreate it because he was illegally practicing law. But this story is real and one-ups it because it's a judge legally practicing law for a few months. And we're going to get into that when we come back.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. For the break, we were talking about flesh-eating cats. I really can't believe I just said that. We were talking about flesh-eating cats. And now we are going to switch it up pretty hard. We're going to talk about a judge. Even worse, a judge that was caught illegally practicing law for a couple of months. So this is DOJ assistant apologizes to judge after practicing law for a couple of months. This top attorney, it was an attorney, I was wrong all along. Top attorney with U.S. Department of Justice was unlawfully practicing law before the federal court system. He apologized to the judge in a letter filed on Monday. The assistant attorney general, Jeffrey B. Clark, stopped paying his dues to remain in good standing with federal bar in October of last year. An oversight he discovered in December of 2019, according to a 2-page letter submitted with the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. I write to you to notify that at one time or another, more filings were made in a ongoing case before the court. The span of time between October 1st and December 9th. My name appeared on the federal government's filing. During this time period, my District of Columbia bar license was inadvertently in an inactive status. Clark's mea culpa continues. Unbeknownst to me, on or about October 1st, 2019, my DC bar license had been placed on an inactive status for inadvertent non-payment of this year's dues. To my knowledge, I had not missed in dues payment deadline prior that year. According to the Assistant Attorney General, he made short work of the month's long deficiency. I discovered this one-time lapse on December 9th, 2019 and paid the necessary dues on the penalty fee, took immediate steps to correct the problem, such that it was a fixed next day. Clark goes on to note. Clark's letter explains that he first reported the dues to issue Department of Justice authorities governing such oversight, which mandate the government attorneys immediately self-report to the Office of Professional Responsibility any lapse in active bar membership during the department employment. Clark also told U.S. District Judge Kentiji Brown Jackson that he was keeping her appraised out of abundance caution. Yeah. What do we think? This letter, while effusively apologetic, conspicuously does not note how Clark learned he was several months late in paying his dues. There's one clue, though, that this high-power lawyer totally missed the mark here. According to Clark, his former firm of Kirkland and Ellis handled the paying his dues for the past 12 years or so, from 2006 to 2018. DC Bar did not have my correct address. I received no mail forwarded to me from my private law firm. So maybe this is just a case of, like, spoiled rich kid syndrome. I don't know. Clark was confirmed by the Senate and took to office as head of DOJ's Environment and Natural Resources Division in October of 2018. As for the filings he inadvertently bearing false witness, Clark has been working on the White House legal actions against California's efforts to curb automobile emissions. So it sounds like he's trying to do good for the world and maybe just genuinely made a little bit of a mistake. I don't know. What do we think? Do we think that Clark should be punished for this? Do we think he should be removed from office, do we think? Or was it really just a case of I made an oopsie? I'm not sure it's as far as as I mentioned before the break. It really reminded me of like the real life version of Community. You know, the show where the lawyer has to go back to community college to get the law degree that he faked. I don't know. Maybe it is that. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe he genuinely just made an oopsie. I thought this was very funny that he made it to this sort of level of law, and could make a mistake as simple as that. So yeah, you tell me. Is this a privileged lawyer getting to skirt the issues, or is this just a whoa? We'll deal with it later. Yeah, you tell me. When we come back, I really liked this. I did this in the last episode as our final segment, so I hope that you guys enjoyed that because I'm going to be doing it again. I'm going to talk the most profound shower thoughts on Reddit this past few days. So those profound shower thoughts when we return.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
All right, welcome back. Before, we were talking about a real-life case of a lawyer accidentally practicing law illegally. Now, for our final segment, I wanted to talk the most profound shower thoughts on Reddit this week. First one, if you don't wear the right clothes when you go for a run, you look like an insane person. Definitely true. If you're just running, but you're not wearing jogging gear, doesn't look right. People have questions, you know? Number 2, if elevators hadn't been invented, all the CEOs and important people would have their offices on the first floor as a sign of status. That's definitely true. You know, like we would have to huff it up to those those other floors. The elevator in my building breaks a lot, and every time I have to walk up, just 8 flights, I want to die. Babies don't know dreams aren't real. So they must think they have some crazy adventures with you every day. I love this thought. I absolutely loved this. I thought it was a great thought, a great notion, that this was a possibility. Like the idea of a baby just thinking like, wow, my life is so cool, but only sometimes, Like I can fly sometimes, I can walk and talk when I'm in this world, and then I can't in the other world. It's just so funny to me. If it weren't for movies, the average person would probably have no idea what an elevator shaft looks like. Probably, unless you're a very curious person, I suppose, right? Some parking spaces make more money in an hour than a worker on minimum wage. Definitely true. Definitely true for me as well. You've probably walked past people you've played video games online with before and didn't realize it. It's sort of sweet if you're an online gamer, I think. Yeah? Do you think it's sweet? Finding food in the forest is easy. The problem is finding the poison is 20 times easier. Dun, dun, dun. When you're cooking with garlic, people always tell you how great it smells, but if you had a garlic candle, people would find that weird and offensive. Yeah, that's a good point. I think we should take that back. Garlic candles. Let's get it going. Let's make everybody's house smell like an Italian restaurant. Turbulence is the pothole of the sky. True, blew my mind. People who are born during the winter probably have more long-sleeve shirts. People born during the summer due to birthday gifts. It's just a true fact. Wet clothes are darker, even though water has no color. Yeah, what's that about? Science people, explain that to me. Porn is the most popular movie genre, despite it being the only one with the same ending for every movie. I liked that one. Maturity is realizing that maybe you're the only a-hole that needs to change. Yep. It is highly probable that even Rick Astley has been rickrolled. Like that thought. That'd be good. Home is where you know exactly how far to turn the knob to get the perfect temperature of the shower. Oh. That one hits deep. At this point in time, a baby was born. Someone had their first birthday. Another went through puberty. Another proposed. Another married. Another retired. Another died. Practically a whole life was lived in this moment. I'll let you sit with that. Wearing contacts instead of glasses is like switching to full screen mode. Amen. For all of my people that wear glasses and or contacts. We're always so quick to click, I'm not a robot, and never once stopped to think about it for a second. Do we know? We've talked about the Matrix a lot on this show. And AI. Dads probably grow to love dogs because they initially think it's one more thing to take care of, but then they become a family member that asks the least of them. Every time you hear I walked into a bar joke, you imagine the same bar every time. I definitely do. You're never aware of how much noise your house makes until the power goes out. Oh. You know you've made it in life when all your bills are paid with autopay. Yeah, I definitely don't do that for every bill because I'm scared I won't make it. So that's it for the Reddit shower thoughts of the past few days. And because of that, that's the closing of our show. Let me know how you feel about the Reddit thing closing it out. I think that they're great little shower moments, little kind of weird thoughts. Not always weird news, but they are little weird thoughts. So if you like them, I'll keep doing them. If you don't, I won't. It's up to you. This is, we do this for you. So thank you for listening to the Weird News Podcast, brought to you, of course, by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show, write a nice review, and rate the episode. It really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That also really helps us. Thank you so much, and have a good night.